Hello, I'm Steve Phillips, and I'm going to try to make this video. I've been putting it off about 10 years. This is a complicated story and a hard story to tell. Back about 15 years ago, I was at the Nashville Civil War show. I was displaying some of my cannonballs. A lot of you know I collect Civil War relics. I got about 600 cannonballs and over 100 guns and a lot of other stuff. Some of it one of a kind. But I've only got one favorite relic. It's not the rarest, but it's my favorite. At the show, I subscribed to the Horse Soldiers magazine, which they sell. They're up in Gettysburg, and they sell relics from the war and artifacts. And I usually just look at the cannonball artillery section, but I got bored at the show and started reading the other stuff. And while I was doing it, I saw this item right here. If you can see it, ID 16. That means it's identified to somebody. It's identified to an Alabama soldier. It's an Enfield rifle, which is a good British-made rifle, better than most people had. Really good gun. And it was ID'd to Private Corporal John C. Deason, Company B of the 44th Alabama Infantry. Well, in researching John C. Deason, his name turned out to be John Columbus Deason. And he's got his initials that looks backwards on there. I don't know if it's because of the way I'm doing this video or what, but on one side it says JCD carved into it, and the other side it has the 44th Alabama Company B. Well, there was only one JCD in 44th Alabama Company B, and it turns out that that was John Columbus Deason. And then the story concerns the relic, the battle, the horse soldier, the relic hunter, and this relic was found by a relic hunter right after the battle. It was missing a ramrod, which, if you read about the fight he was in, was Devil's Den. And they talk about the close quarters and all the rocks, and that some of the ramrods got bent. Well, a bent ramrod's useless. So he discarded the gun, and there were others around, even though he really liked this one, because this was a good one. And he just got it, because he'd been captured just a couple of months before Gettysburg at Suffolk, Virginia, at the Hills Point Battery. All of the Company B was captured, and they were exchanged promptly, and was there for the fight at Gettysburg. When I told the people at Horse Soldier that I wanted to try to buy this gun, and they told me it had already been sold. But I told them I wanted it, and I wanted to try to buy it from whoever bought it. And they said, don't let him know, because he's a Yankee, and if he finds out you want it, you're not going to get it. So they said, just keep your mouth shut. And so it took about 5 years. One day, Wes Small called me up and said, do you still want that gun? I said, yes. So I bought it and brought it home. The John Columbus he didn't want to go to war, but he did. And not only did he go to war, in that part of the family, there was 7 brothers or brother-in-laws. There was 4 sisters that were married, and there was 3 brothers that were aged to go to war. They all went. two of them, Eliza and Rebecca Deason, married Charles and William Smith, two sisters, married two brothers. The Smiths were both in the 44th Alabama. Harriet married Henry McElroy, and Huey, it didn't say he didn't have a wife, he's a brother, Huey Deason. Matilda married William Bracknell, he was in the 44th, Company B. And James W. Deason, that was all seven of them, counting John Columbus. Of the seven, Charles Smith died at Petersburg, July of 1862. His brother, William Riley Smith, died at Richmond, June 15th, 1864. Henry McElroy died at Chattanooga Hospital, December the 8th, 1862. Harriet and her two sons died during the war. Huey Deason, he died Chattanooga, Tennessee, May 9th, 1864. William Bracknell died Falling Rock Creek, Virginia, July 27th, 1862. Of the seven brothers and brother-in-laws, only two survived the war. John Columbus was captured, he was wounded, he was sick a lot, he was in a lot of battles, but he survived, and one brother survived. None of the brother-in-laws survived. I think that's an interesting part showing how much loss there was in the war. The main battle that they're famous for being in was Devil's Den. And when the fight started, it was Hood was fixing to take they'd already come across Big Round Top and driven the Yankees back a couple of miles actually, but when they started going up Little Round Top, they were taking sniper fire from some rocks, some big rocks over down here, down around Plum Run and below Little Round Top. And so they took the 44th and the 48th Alabama and said, go get those snipers out of the rocks. Well, that's what John Columbus did. And he ended up as a sniper that day, and he ended up leaving the gun on the Slider Farm, not the Snyder Farm, which is there too, but it was picked up by the family there, the relic hunters of the day. And they picked it up and they kept it for about 130 years. And then they had a lot of relics and they sold them. The family sold them later on through the horse soldier. And this is just a relic. It's a battlefield pickup. It was found with no ramrod, so that's why it was laid down. He just got another gun because he did survive the war. But this is telling. The only thing he ever really wrote was one little story after the war. He never talked about anything that happened, but he wrote this, and it's the only thing he ever wrote that I know of. I was born in Butler County, Alabama, June 3rd, 1836. When I was 6 weeks old, my parents moved to Bibb County, stayed in Bibb County 1 year, and becoming dissatisfied, moved back to Butler. Then about 1844, they moved back to Bibb County where I was reared to manhood, and I am at this time. My father and mother had 9 children, 3 boys and 6 girls. 2 of the boys and 2 of the girls have now gone to their eternal home. My parents and my oldest sister joined the Old School Baptist Church. He talks a lot about churches. They joined the Haysop Baptist Church. In my early boyhood, I was very feeble, puny, pale, and bloated. My brothers and sisters called me Dirt Eater, which I denied and still do. My dear old mama spared no puny kin, compounding roots and other stuff to recover me from my bloated condition, such as sweet bay root, snake root, copperus, pills, and many other things, units of which I would take almost as many as my daily bread. About the time I reached the age of 18, I outgrew it and became real hardy and tough as a knot, but small and still so. After I came to be hardy, I loved to visit places of amusement and gay company. Rowdy associations were my delight. I attended all sorts of so-called religious meetings. I also took great delight in a debating society, and at times it was hard to keep up. After I was of age, I was with father. Then I set in with G.W. Howard to make a crop. In March, we had a ruckus, and I left him and went to one of my cousins and lived with him. In fall, I taught a little school near my father's. In my 25th year, I lived with Simon C. Brown, but my mind changed. He had a foolish girl about 17 years old by the name of Louisa. On January 20th, 1861, me and her married. I rented land from her father to make a crop. We worked hard that year and made a nice little crop. In the fall of the same year, we joined Missionary Baptist Church in New Macedonia. That same day, my wife's father gave us a little tract of land which we moved to and commenced improving to make a crop. Our living together was about ended. The war was raging, call after call was being made for volunteers. I soon saw that I would have to go. Then it seemed to draw the tick of nature a little closer. On 13th of February, 1862, our oldest daughter was born. Then, in place of one, I must leave two. In March of the year, I bid my wife and child farewell and went to Selma in camp of instruction. While there, I took the measles and almost died. Got some better, then my wife's father came after me and brought me home in quite a feeble state. I remained at home till I was well. Then I bid a worser farewell than before to my wife and child. My baby was very sick. I never expected to see her again. I went to the Army at Richmond, Virginia. Our regiment was engaged in all principal battles and sieges that were fought in Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, also the great Battle of Chickamauga, and then back to Virginia in time for the Battle of the Wilderness. Then we fell back to the cities of Richmond and Petersburg. And while there, about January 1st, 1865, I got a furlough of 30 days to go home to see my wife and child. I found them well, but my wife's father was dead. I stayed at home a while, then went off to the cavalry in North Alabama and stayed with them until the war was about over. Then I went home, rented some land from my wife's ma, and started to make a little crop in May. Consequently, made very little. In July, I took a little school at Macedonia. In the fall, I bought 200 acres of land from Simon Brown, Jr., paying $400 for it in stock, which left us without a penny, one shabby coat, no meat, no corn. Then it was, we must root hog or die. The next year, 1866, we had a severe drought which cut the crop short, and we still had to live hard. That's about it. He did survive the war. This is John Columbus. Only he and one brother survived. He was able to build a family. This is his son, Marion Huey Deason, who died when he was 39 years old. He was quite ambitious. He had a little newspaper and a little store, and had started a family, had a beautiful wife. She was a Elam, Dorothy Ann Elam. And he's lucky to have survived the war. Marion Huey died in 1912. His daughter, Jenny Maybelle Deason Phillips, is my mother.